Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for Monday, June 21st, 2021. On today's episode, we're going to discuss the latest film and TV news. This is Slash Film Editorial Director Peter Sciretta, and joining me on today's podcast is Slash Film Weekend Editor Brad Oman.
Hey, that's me.
And Senior Writer Ben Pearson.
Hey, what's going on?
Okay, we have 4 stories today, but let's just jump right into them. Let's start off with the big name, the big cheese himself, Steven Spielberg. He's notoriously been kind of against film's evolution towards the streaming platform. He wants to keep the cinema alive, but he has signed a deal with Netflix. Tell us about it, Ben.
Yeah, so his company, Amblin Partners, is a production company, and they have signed a deal with Netflix to produce multiple movies a year for the streaming service. That sort of, if you stopped there, people might draw the conclusion, holy shit, like Steven Spielberg is only going to be making movies for Netflix moving forward, and that is not actually what's happening here. In actuality, Amblin Partners also has a separate distribution deal with Universal, which is specifically for theatrical stuff, and that was renewed as recently as December of 2020. So he's still going to be releasing movies theatrically. Even though that deal was with Universal, Spielberg himself is sort of still essentially a free agent. Over the past few years, he's made movies for Warner Brothers and 20th Century Studios and Disney, so he's not necessarily locked into any one specific place. But this new deal will allow Amblin Partners to make a bunch of movies for Netflix. For several per year. There's no specific number. There's no specific titles, listed yet. But yeah, this is kind of just a way. It sounds like a way for Spielberg to sort of lean more into the streaming space. And this guy, even though he has been fighting for the theatrical experience for a long time, he can probably see the writing on the wall here. He knows how important streaming is. So it just makes business sense for him to, tie one of his companies to the biggest and most dominant force in the streaming space right now.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, it's not just movies he's directing. Amblin produces a lot of stuff that, he's just a producer or executive producer on, like the Jurassic World movies, A Dog's Journey, Men in Black International, Cats. The Untitled 5th Indiana Jones film. I'm not sure if any of those are part of this deal or not, but it's interesting to see. I mean, you're right, Ben. This does not, like, he's not signing an exclusive deal with the streaming service. If he did that, that would be, I think, huge news. But this does feel like he's relenting a little bit, right? Because I don't know. I don't feel like Chris Nolan would ever do this.
Yeah, and I think Spielberg, this is like sort of a continuation of him like dipping his toe in the water because, way back in, I think it was 2017, he signed a deal with Apple TV Plus to produce some stuff for them. And he also, if you recall, was associated with Quibi for a little while. He was supposed to make that show where I think it could only literally be watched at certain times of night. It was going to be like a horror series, and that never ended up happening because Quibi died essentially before Spielberg had an opening in his schedule to be able to have enough time to produce and make. I think he was supposed to direct that show. So that never happened. But he has worked in the streaming space before. This just basically seems like another way to, another avenue for these Amblin projects to sort of go down.
But usually when he's working in streaming, it's like on TV shows. It's like, Amazing Stories or that thing he was going to work on for Quibi or.
Yeah, that's true. This is a movie related thing. So.
Yeah. He has a bad track record of putting his name on TV shows like Terra Nova. But, yes. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to Marvel for a second. Let's talk about Black Widow, which comes out next month. I think July 9th. Is that correct?
That's
so in a couple weeks. And one of the stars of that film, David Harbour, plays the Red Guardian. And Brad, are we going to get a Red Guardian prequel movie?
I sincerely doubt it. I mean, it just doesn't seem like the kind of thing that lends itself to what Marvel is doing right now. But at the same time, I mean, fans are probably going to love what David Harbour does with Red Guardian, and David Harbour himself has some hopes that there might be a way to do some kind of story that involves clashing with Captain America, because apparently there's this big 25-year gap where what Red Guardian was doing is kind of unaccounted for. And so there's a period of time where, like, I guess there are some stories he tells about his life, some that are probably more exaggerated than they are real. And so David Harbour kind of has this like affection for, you know, how he created these like stories that he believes and that kind of thing. And there could be an opportunity where it could be fun to tell a story that maybe isn't true, but is something that he, you know, created. But at the same time, he likes the idea of kind of digging into these characters kind of being products of, you know, war, and like a story that might take place like in a Cold War setting where they kind of came up together and were clashing almost like in an arms race between America and Russia. It's possible that this is something that could happen in an alternate Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline, but as it stands, since Captain America was frozen from World War II through roughly just before 2012 when the Avengers came back together, it's not something that can happen in the primary timeline. But what could happen is Red Guardian could clash with the new Captain America, since we have Sam Wilson, who has taken up the mantle. And so there may be even an opportunity there to do something where Red Guardian is forced to team up with the new Captain America, because I think the dynamic where Red Guardian, you know, hates anybody in a Captain America suit could be fun if he was forced to work with Captain America.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably more likely than them doing a prequel origin story like Harbour is talking about here. And by the way, I'm sure he was asked in an interview, like, would you like to do this? And he's like, sure. But, you know, I guess Marvel has a history of that, using that de-aging technology. They've used it in a bunch of movies now. They used it in Captain Marvel to great effect. So, I mean, they could use it on David Harbour to make David Harbour look a lot younger and do the Red Guardian story. But I'm just not sure there's a, like, the fans are going to be excited for a Red Guardian movie. But I don't know. I also didn't think fans were going to be excited for, like, you know, a Wanda TV show, or I don't know. It seems like Marvel really knows what people want before they want it, is what I'm saying, I guess. Before we have some more Marvel stuff to talk about, but before we get to that, let's talk about Fast 9. That comes out soon. Is that this Friday, Ben?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, this Friday. And we know that Han returns in Fast 9 because it's all over the marketing. But apparently this was a huge secret during filming. I mean, we didn't know anything about it. Ben, tell us about the secrecy behind Han's return.
Yeah, it sort of sounds like a Marvel level of secrecy here. There's a quote from Sung Kang, who plays the character of Han. He was talking to Digital Spy and basically saying that Justin Lin, the director, and Universal, they were like, went out of their way to hide him on the set from, you know, potential photographers and stuff like that. He says there's a lot of cast photos early on. If you look at the Fast 9 photos from set, there's all these birthday parties and stuff. I'm never invited. I would see the birthday cakes from afar, but it's part of the fun. It's really cool to be part of that narrative. So I'm sort of sad for Sung Kang, just like that image of him standing on the sidelines while everybody's celebrating and eating birthday cake. And he's just like, you know, kicking the ground and going, oh shucks, I can't be involved in this because I can't be photographed on the set. But he's actually like so secretive about like keeping the specifics of how Han is able to return. He said that basically he kept the reveal of how exactly Han comes back, quote, very close to my chest. He said, I actually haven't even told my wife. So I guess his wife is just curious about how this is going, and he's refusing to tell because, you know, he's taken a page out of your playbook, Peter. The magician never reveals the secrets.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he told her, I'm going to work on a new Fast and the Furious movie, but wouldn't absolutely reveal the specifics. Yeah. Because that'd be insane. Like, where are you going for a couple weeks? Oh, I can't tell you, honey.
Right.
Usually, you know, I'm sure actors sign these kind of NDAs all the time, but usually they end up telling their significant other. So I'm sure he's doing. I'm sure this is like, kind of all in the fun of having his wife eventually seeing it. So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay, let's move back to Marvel. There's this quote from Kevin Feige. He was asked, could more Marvel superheroes get the Black Widow prequel treatment? Brad, what did he say?
He basically, is never willing to count out anything. So there's no like solid ideas that he's proposing or anything like that. But he said that it's something that they're, clearly open to. He says, quote, certainly this film and this story is a particular case for Natasha, but the notion of exploring the past, present, and future of the MCU is certainly in the cards for all of our characters. This particular story and this particular cast is very personal, very specific to Natasha. So a very diplomatic answer from Kevin Feige that says, maybe, sure, no, yes, kind of, not really. But, I do think that it does open the possibility for them, not just to tell stories in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that move forward in time and, keep along with as, obviously time passes in our world. But it gives an opportunity to kind of tell older stories or parallel stories, fill in gaps that there are in between different franchises and things like that. Captain Marvel, initially went all the way back to the 90s so that we could, have her properly in Avengers Endgame and know about her before she showed up and, became this big presence that could take on Thanos. And now, we're filling in Black Widow's story after the events of Avengers Endgame. And so, there's plenty of possibilities out there of ways, to tell more stories, bring back characters that fans love without, doing the thing where you bring certain characters back from the dead.
Yeah. I mean, well, they are doing that here, but...
Well, I mean, not really.
Yeah. I thought we'd use this as a jumping off point because we don't have that much in terms of like big news content to talk about today. And I wanted to run by you guys. What do you think? Like, what characters could Marvel use as a prequel movie if they wanted to? Like, and what would be a good idea for? Like, I was going down the list, and it's really a lot of these characters already have their origin story told in the movies, right? Like, so Tony Stark, Iron Man, there's not really any reason to go back. We see his whole origin story. But on the other hand, there's, other characters like Bruce Banner, the Hulk. We didn't really get to see his origin story in this version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Well, that's not entirely true. I mean,
we did kind of.
Just not with it. Just wasn't with Mark Ruffalo, but that movie is still very much part of the cinematic universe, story. So,
but doesn't that even begin after? Wait, I haven't seen that movie in a long, long time. I forgot that. I believe that began when he was already on the run, right?
Yeah, it did. I remember the opening credits sort of like zooms through, a couple of the highlights of like him getting injected or whatever happens, like the gamma ray accident and all that stuff, the radiation accident. So yeah.
I feel like that's one of those things where like you don't necessarily need the origin story, much in the same way that Marvel introduced Spider-Man without giving us the origin story, because like, yeah, we get it. He got bit by a spider and he has spider powers. Let's get it going.
Yeah, and I don't think Spider-Man's one you could even do because I can't see them like de-aging Tom Holland to young. Like that would just be weird, right? It would look like one of those like fake, a
deep fake.
Deep fake, yeah. I was going through this list of characters. Hawkeye, maybe they could do Hawkeye. That's in the same line of like Black Widow, right? And like even had some missions with.
Yeah, that's true. They could do a prequel approach to that. But at the same time, they could easily be doing something like that with the TV show if they have flashbacks.
Yeah, no, I think you're probably right there. What about Drax? I feel like Drax has... I mean, the problem with Drax is you have this backstory that we've learned about his family being killed by Thanos.
Yeah.
And you already have the conclusion to that.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure...
I think if there's any Guardians who you could easily make a movie out of, it's Rocket and Groot, and following any adventures they might have had before they met, Star-Lord and Gamora and all them.
So would you do that together? Well, they were they together before the events of Guardians of the Galaxy?
They were already a team.
Yeah, so you could do Rocket and Groot. That would be great. But do you think Marvel would that be strange doing a movie that the two main characters are completely CG?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, Avatar is a movie where all the characters are entirely CG.
Speaking of Avatar, what about Gamora? Because Gamora is, well, first of all, she's played by an actress who is responsible for some of the biggest, or not I want to say she's in some of the biggest box office hits of all time. So making a Gamora movie on the surface, if you were a movie executive just looking at, a list of films that an actor or actress has done and how much money they brought in, that sounds like a no-brainer. But I actually think there could be something there with Gamora and Nebula and Thanos. Like there could be something to that.
I think they've already covered enough of that in the Guardians movies and the Avengers movies. We've gotten a taste of her and Nebula's sisterhood, and they that whole thing had an arc, and then there's an arc as far as how much she hates Thanos, and her origin as a child. So probably not.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem with prequels in general, right? Like that's the thing is like, there's so much of it that we already know, or that like, if you look at something like Solo, a Star Wars story, where it's just like, it fills in information that we didn't need to know. So I wrote down a few things here, Peter, that are more, I don't know what you would want to call it.
More realistic?
Esoteric? No, more ridiculous, really. Like something that Disney would never actually, or Disney and Marvel would never actually greenlight, but stuff that I want to see anyway. That's sort of like, if there has to be a prequel, this is the kind of stuff that I want to see. So like a Jeff Goldblum Grandmaster project, or like how did he come to be the ruler of, what was that planet?
Sakaar,
yes. So, that's one of those things that like his rise, I don't think would give too many opportunities for them to sort of wink at the camera and be like, hey, see, like, remember this part from Thor Ragnarok? Here's exactly how Jeff Goldblum got the crazy robe that he wears or whatever. Like, there doesn't seem to be a lot of opportunities for that. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. Something that it has minimized the amount of potential annoyances. So maybe something like that. I was thinking of the character Trevor Slattery, which is Ben Kingsley's character from Iron Man 3.
Oh, the actor.
Yeah, so this would basically just be like a low-key drama, a movie about like a guy who's a really great actor. And maybe he's in, a couple of off Broadway shows where he's like really great, really blowing people away, but like he has this drug addiction, which is holding him back from hitting that next level and becoming like a worldwide recognizable actor. And then maybe something happens where Guy Pearce's character at the end of the movie sees him in a show and then ends up hiring him to become a stand-in for the Mandarin or something.
Oh, it could be about him trying to make a movie about what happened in Iron Man 3.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so that wouldn't be a prequel, but that would be a really cool sort of off-branch continuation kind of thing. I like that.
Ben, you just named two wildly different characters that I didn't even think about. Did not even occur to me.
I have two more, Peter, if you want to run through them real quick.
Yes.
So one of them is a movie about Roman Day. I think that's how you pronounce his character. That's John C. Reilly's Novacore detective or character from Guardians of the Galaxy. Because isn't he just like a space cop, basically? Yeah. I feel like you could have like a cool like just a hard-boiled detective story with John C. Reilly trying to track a criminal across the underworld of Xandar or something. I feel like there could be something there that has nothing to do with tying into the events that we've seen him, portrayed in.
Yeah, a Novacore series actually could be pretty cool.
Yeah, and then the last one is an Adrian Toomes movie, bringing Michael Keaton back from Spider-Man: Homecoming, and this would again just be like a blue-collar drama about a guy trying to run a business, like a salvage yard in New York City. Because I think that's like one of the big things that we've learned over the past 10 years or something is like, the mid-budget, mid-range movies have gone away in favor of super micro-budget stuff or a lot of superhero stuff. But one way to sort of explore the type of territory that used to be frequently explored in the 80s, 90s, and whatever is to slap a little bit of superhero sheen on something. So if you say that this is a Vulture prequel, you can sort of hide that, as long as it has a little bit of that in the marketing or something, you can kind of like sneak your way into something that is more akin to, just a Michael Keaton movie that would have been made in 1993 or something. So I would kind of love that. Just a movie about a guy trying to run a salvage yard in New York City and like raise a family. And there's like almost no reference whatsoever to any superhero stuff at all.
Him trying to deal with cleaning up the Battle of New York and
getting like permits from the city and stuff, just like
having meetings with his daughter's teachers.
Yeah, exactly. I would love that. I would genuinely love to see Michael Keaton do something like that.
Ben, I'd watch every one of these movies, but I don't think Disney has any interest. Actually, maybe the Nova Corp. I could see that as like a Disney Plus TV series. I could totally see that working. Brad, did you have any ideas for some Marvel prequel movies or TV series?
Yeah, so I think this one probably lends itself more to a TV series, and it kind of fits the same mold as Black Widow, because even though we have the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series right now, there's a lot of time in Bucky's past while Cap was frozen, but he was still active as an assassin, that you can tell so many stories across different decades featuring Bucky as the Winter Soldier carrying out various missions and things like that. You could probably have him encounter some of like the lower tier Marvel villains that normally might fight against Captain America, but he has to deal with at certain times. And honestly, this actually could be a way for David Harbour to kind of get a little bit of what he wants, because maybe you could have Red Guardian and Winter Soldier be at odds at some point in the series too.
I didn't even think of Bucky because I was like, he's part of Falcon and Winter Soldier, but there is a lot of years there that you could explore. I'm just not sure if there's an arc. Do you know what I mean? Like, because you couldn't go up till the point where he is turned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else, Brad? Do you have any other ideas?
The Rocket and Groot one was the one that I was.
Rocket and Groot, yeah.
I think that would be a lot of fun.
No, I think that could be a lot of fun. One that was on my list. By the way, I made this list.
Actually, we could even combine that idea with Ben's, and it could be like Rocket and Groot with Nova Corps, and it can be like an Adventures of Rocket and Bullwheel kind of series where Nova Corps is always after Rocket and Groot, and Rocket and Groot are always evading them.
I love that.
It's very Looney Tunes. No, it's funny. Ben made this list of the movies he wanted to see or he would like to see out of this, and I just made a list of like the things I thought like maybe could happen. Not necessarily things I want. So I don't know. I feel like I'm on like my ideas are like on the other side of the fence, but a Nick Fury prequel movie or TV series, I think it's like a no-brainer. But could you do that without Samuel L. Jackson? Do you do it with the de-aged Samuel L. Jackson?
Well, and plus we kind of got some of that in a way with Captain Marvel.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you're right. Is there anything to do with like Peter Quill and Star-Lord? I mean, I guess you could do the adventures of him with
like young Star-Lord with Yondu and the
Yondu, yeah. But then you don't have Chris. So is that, or do you have Chris? I don't know. It becomes weird now that like all this digital de-aging, because how far can you go with that?
It could be interesting to do it with like, if you want to gear it towards like a younger audience, if you do it with a kid actor, like a teenage Peter Quill, like learning the ropes and like encountering all these crazy things in space.
Here's one. Valkyrie. I think you could very well do a Valkyrie movie that starts off showing her origin and then go throughout the movie, then goes towards like where we are now.
Yeah, and it could get into that relationship that was supposed to be cut from Thor Ragnarok. That would be a good way to sort of make good on the last second cut from there.
Yeah. Here's one that is going to make you hate me, but I'm going to bring it up anyways. But the Sharon Carter movie. So she was Agent 13. I'm not going to ruin Falcon and Winter Soldier, but she has a big part in that. And I don't know. It feels like they're building her up for something. Maybe it's the future of the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV series, but she's been through a lot of stuff, and they haven't really explained it. So maybe there's something there. But the one I did want to propose to you guys, which I think is kind of like your Nova Corps idea, was Jimmy Woo.
Oh, yeah.
I would watch a show or a movie starring Jimmy Woo. Would anybody else? Probably not, but I'm in.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
What about Wong? Like, are there any sorcery-related mishaps that maybe needed his attention right before Stephen Strange rolled up? I feel like Benedict Wong could do a good job holding down the fort there.
You know what's funny is I was going through like the list of characters on Wikipedia, the MCU main characters. Like they have this whole Wikipedia page, and Wong was included in like the main characters. And then you get to like supporting characters and like Ancient One. I'm like, wait, so Wong is a main character, but the Ancient One, and also like Peggy Carter and
maybe it's because Wong appeared like in more like movies than the Ancient One did, I guess.
Yeah, like he had that line like right before right around the Avengers Assemble part in the Battle of Earth or whatever. So maybe that sort of elevated his character or something. I don't know.
I mean, we do know that we're getting a Wakanda TV series. We don't know what that is about, but maybe that could be. Actually, didn't we already theorize? Wasn't there like a rumor that it was going to be a prequel for who was it? Okoye, I think, maybe. Am I misremembering this?
No, that was a recent story. Yeah, and we talked about how it might deal with like the origins of the Dora Milaje and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that could be interesting, but there isn't a lot of room for prequel things in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because usually they show the origin story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I didn't mention Nakia, which is I think Lupita Nyong'o's character in Black Panther, because there's that Wakanda show that you're talking about, and I'm not sure exactly what the scope of that's going to be, but yeah, her backstory sounds super cool. Like, there seems to be tons of ground to whatever of stuff to mine there if they wanted to do that, but I'm just not sure. Like maybe that's part of the plan or something, is flashbacks or who knows. But
I feel like as a huge fan of Guardians of the Galaxy, the two that are sticking out to me the most is the Rocket and Groot like movie or the Nova Corp movie, because I just want to explore more of the Guardians universe and spend more time in there. And it's actually kind of sad that there's going to be this Christmas special and then it's going to be a third movie and that's it, according to James Gunn for now, until he needs money and until Marvel decides otherwise. Yeah. Okay. I think we came up with a good list. I want to know if you out there that is listening to this podcast, yes, I'm talking about you. Did you have any ideas that we overlooked? Was there any Marvel characters that deserve their own prequel film or TV shows? Let us know. Send us an email at peter@slashfilm.com. You can find more of all of our work at slashfilm.com. You can find this podcast on Apple, Google, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. Please rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts. Tell your friends, spread the word, and we'll see you tomorrow.